Hotline FN, the live call-in show for your hot takes, bold predictions, and unpopular opinions surrounding the competitive Fortnite scene. This is episode 9, and I'm joined today by the man, the myth, the legend, Bala TW. We're gonna get right into it, just jump straight into it this time. So I hope you enjoy. So let's talk first a bit here, Bala, about trios, right? That's big. That's what's happening this weekend. It's the most immediate event coming up in competitive Fortnite. And it's been sort of an awkward situation, right? Where there's no real viable way to practice until yesterday. And so suddenly everybody's just trying to grind, trying to get games in, trying to get as much time with Siphon and Arena in as they possibly can, both in custom settings and in Arena itself, or a custom setting and then Arena itself. What do you think? Like, is this going to be enough time? Like, do you think that there's enough, we've had enough time and enough lead up for there to be, for us to see the best that trios can be this weekend? Or are we going to see preliminary beginnings of the definition of a trio meta?
I like that question a lot because literally today during the VOD reviews, we were watching some trio like VOD, and I was just telling people like, no, that nobody knows how to play this yet. Nobody knows. Like, I was playing them yesterday after Arena Trios came out. I was playing the pro customs and Prac and nobody knew how to stay together. Literally everybody was split because we're actually in a weird spot. It's not like the last time trios happened. It's not like back when we used to squad and scrim, because there's shockwaves and there's shadow grenades, and that's most of the mobility in the game. There's launch pads. But the launch pads are the only team mobility when you think about it. Shockwaves are team mobility if you use it perfectly, but it's a whole different game. So people don't understand how to play trios yet, and I don't think we're going to figure it out this weekend. I think maybe one team or two teams or three teams will figure it out, and they'll be at the top of the leaderboard 100%. I think it'll be a stomp. Whoever figures it out first is going to be the guy who or the team that's going to lead the way this weekend.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that a really big thing is going to be either the winner is going to be 3 players who are so mechanically good that it doesn't matter when they get split in late game situations, or it's going to be, hopefully, I'd prefer to see, it's going to be a team that's figured out how to stay together, how to play mid and low, even when they don't have high, still together. It seems to me that it's relatively simple to get your head around, like, we have height, how do we hold height and keep height together and win from that position, compared to, and stay together in that situation, compared to like the chaos of mid ground and low ground, especially in the trio situation, right? So I agree. I think that it's likely to just kind of be a frag out like we've seen. Although one thing that's really interesting is the format's different, right? And we're seeing way more points possible, just like in general. So we're going to see some high scores, but then placement is so important. It's 3 points for top 8, I think, is where it begins, right? And you're looking at 15 total. 12 total.
12 total.
12 total.
So it's like the same type of threshold thing, but there's 3 points in each. So there's a total more, which we haven't seen anything about that really yet. So we don't know how the format works. But again, there's no cap on the format. So it's the same thing, right? It's going to be the same thing no matter what. If there's no cap on how many points you can get per game, you're going to see people try to maximize that as best as you can. So especially in the regions where, the prizing isn't as good all the way to the top, you're going to see people just crank for tons of kills and try to get the most points as possible. But I don't know. I've had fun so far with trios. I know a lot of people are like, this isn't working, but I feel like it's just because they haven't figured it out yet.
I think they're off the rockers.
People are overreacting. Yeah. 100%.
Overreacting. I think they damn crazy. Listen, I've only gotten to play for like one solid chunk of like 8 hours last night after work, late into the morning. Don't be me, guys. Don't stay up till 3 o'clock multiple nights in a row playing trios, because
it's trio arena. Come on, Tim, you could be excused.
I did make an excuse. I did, and it was so much fun. It was the most fun I've had playing competitive Fortnite in a long time. I love trios. We've talked about it a lot on this show, obviously, but I'm so stoked. And like even just get like you die early and getting to play sort of this IGL coach sort of role that we've talked about for your teammates is actually crazy helpful. Like there were times where
what I was talking about all that time ago with the live coaching thing. I was like, that is crazy good and fun. And
Cease wasn't sure about it. Yeah. I agree completely.
Exactly.
Like, there are times where like I'm almost tempted to be like, you go die as we go into like ninth circle so that you can tell the rest of us everything we need to know. Like it's incredible how useful it is having that extra voice, right? So the other interesting thing coming into this weekend, right, is well, I think it's doubly interesting. We've got Airstrike, and I also think it's worth talking a little bit about Stormflip in this situation, right? You see a little bit of opinions on Stormflip burbling back up again in the community. Burbling, gurgling, creeping,
bubbling.
Hey, that's the word. I'm throwing R's everywhere. All right, so let's start though with Airstrike, right? It what is it? It's how much damage? It's 20 rockets.
Do we have to, Tim? I mean, come on. What is this item? Like, what? Why? What does this have to do with Fortnite? There's not even any planes in the game anymore. Why are there airstrikes? Why? Building is fun. Like, let's stop with this crazy aspect of destroying builds with explosives that you can't control and are completely random. It is so frustrating.
I disagree, dude. I think I would rather have airstrikes in the game than grenade launchers, than proximity grenade launchers, than rocket launchers. 100%. It's two uses at best if you found two, and it's a 9 meter radius. It's so small. It's so easy to walk away. It's easier than a storm.
How many uses it has? One person has to hold it, and one person has to throw it in an 8th circle, and then everybody's rotation is completely screwed. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't make any sense. It's the exact same thing as Stormflip. It is one person to ruin a lot of people's games, or at least frustrate it and make it so damn annoying to play against and to rotate through. Sure, the impact is not that great. You're not getting frags with it. It is not useful at all to carry it.
It's kind of like Boombox in that situation in that way.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's an item that is meant to grief. That's what it is. That's what it is. It's the same thing as Stormflip. Nobody carries it unless they want a grief or they have to have it. So it's just a grief item, and it's bro. I don't know how many times I rotated yesterday in endgame trios and had a freaking airstrike and 2 stormflips go off at the same time and just like lose my mind because I can't do anything except just hope and pray that I get through it alive.
No, there's so much you can do against it. If you're building with hard mats above you, all you have to do is move 2 squares. You move 2 squares and you're fine.
That is totally true, but that's assuming that nobody else is near you and they're not going to land in your box and cause you to have to actually try to shoot and then also block your top. There's just, I've watched so many clips of pros in pro customs just like going off. There was a clip of Booga yesterday where he was popping off. He had like three, four kills, split from his team. He was popping off. He's starting to get his HP back. He was like low HP, and then all of a sudden, because he wasn't paying attention because he was just pumping a dude in the face on the edge of the zone, and he just gets hit with a rocket and dies. Like, this is the thing, man. It just makes it so that all of a sudden these plays are no longer going to be seen because somebody is dealing with something that they shouldn't have to deal with. Yeah. Can we go back to the days of just crazy sequence of events with pump shotguns and box fighting and jumping off of stuff and doing the... that's what I want to see. That's what makes the game exciting. I don't want to see somebody have to deal with explosions all over their head and storm flips everywhere, and that's not the adapting I want to see.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. It's like, I definitely don't. But I guess I'd rather not have it.
Is it fun?
Oh, it's very fun to use.
Really?
Oh, I love it so much. It's so
why?
It's so clutch. It helps you take high ground. It makes retaking high ground from a full trio like go from feeling nearly impossible to like, oh, okay, like we can attempt this. Like that's like basically the only like real world scenario where I'm glad to have it around. I feel like the team that holds high, like gets high ground, that battles for it, like it's hard to get high ground, right? But the team who gets it going into 7th, 8th, 9th circle, like they basically have an uncontested win. It feels like that's such a strong position to be in that I almost feel like Airstrike was a premeditated answer. It almost certainly wasn't, but it's really hard. It's really hard to take height as 3 from 3 people in those in-game situations. I don't know.
I feel like that's literally a skill that is fun to watch. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to take height. You just have to play as a team and
that's also true. You don't need height.
Like,
yeah,
and if you have good build fight skills, I feel like you can take height against 3 people. Like, they're all gonna be trying to spam builds after you, but like if you are just being good and reacting to what they do, I think you can do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, do we have to? That's
a good point. Like, do we have to? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's needed. I think if given the choice, I would still take it over all of the splodes we have in the game otherwise. But
nope,
I don't think it was needed.
RPGs, GLs are way more fun.
Really? You think so?
It's frustrating. Yeah. What?
They have a similar situation. Like RPG has a similar. RPG
no, it doesn't.
Similar situation of just being like, I get to ruin this person's game. Like,
no, it doesn't. What, you just block against an RPG? What are you talking about?
Dude, an RPG on height against mid and low is so strong. Are you kidding me? Like, that's been like the golden situation to be in.
It's not a thing that like all of a sudden you're just getting pelted over and over for like. It's not that at all. It is a one-time thing that you react to, and then it's over.
Fair enough. All right. Let's see. What do we got here? Let's get our first question in. Let's bring in. Here we go. Hey, man, how's it going? What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, RESPRiT. I'm calling from Seattle, Washington.
Hey, Pacific Northwest the fuck up. How's it going?
Good. Yeah, I finally got to kind of watch Hotline FN live, so.
Nice. Welcome. Well, what's your topic? What do you got for us?
All right, so I wanted to just talk about, like, what is a better ranked mode? I know that that's, like, super vague and stuff, but I always see pros and just, like, the player base in general, they'll just say, like, rank sucks. Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's not a real ranked mode. And like, I don't think ranked is in a great spot, but when I just think about it, it's just all these conflicting interests. Like, one thing that really got me thinking about this recently is Apex Legends, they got their new ranked mode, right? And I've been watching Shroud. He's trying to get to Diamond. I don't know if he got there yet, but it's been like pretty hard for him. Like, it's not quick. And meanwhile, Fortnite gets Arena. Yeah, and pros are getting, they're getting to contender? They're getting the 300 points. Yeah, champions, they're getting it super fast. And it's not totally clear to me why that is, but that kind of seems wrong to me, right? Like, it should be kind of a challenge. It should be a grind, like in League or in any other game with ranked mode. So that's just kind of I wanted to chat about it. And I have some thoughts about it, but I was curious what you guys were thinking.
We've talked about it a couple of times. I don't think we've gotten super in depth. I think a ranked mode is very, very difficult in the battle royale. Just thinking about it, right? Any game. So let's start with that premise, right? Any game that has 100 players and it is random. To some extent, it is random who you get in a game with. It is random who you run into in a game. There is such a difficult element, right? Think about like Counter-Strike. If you kill somebody that is better than you in the elo system, you get a certain amount of points, and it's very flat. It's very easy. And then if you die to somebody that is way worse than you, you lose a certain amount of points. That is the basis of most elo systems. How the hell does that work in BR?
Yep.
Right. Definitely.
I have no idea. I have no clue. So I think there is a certain, like, you kind of have to deal with like a format system. I don't know how Apex does it. I don't pay attention to Apex at all, unfortunately. I know they have a rank system, and I'm also just scratching my head and wondering how the heck are they doing it, because in my mind, it has to be format based. It has to be, because there's just no way. It just has to be everybody's playing for the same goal, and head to head doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a strength of lobby, like something like that, some sort of element of strength of lobby. So if the strength of lobby is bigger than your elo, then maybe that's a thing. But it can't be, I kill that dude, so I get a certain amount of points, because it doesn't matter. Like, that is completely irrelevant in the game. So here's my thoughts. The formats that we have right now work great for playing the game. They work great for playing the game, in my opinion. Like, playing a custom with 100 people with that format is good. Playing that same format in arena mode is fine. The only thing is that there is nothing backing arena mode. There is no leaderboard. There is no structure. There is nothing to play for. And like you said, after 300 points, which is mad easy, there's actually nothing. So it's not even a ranked mode. It really isn't. It's not a ranked mode at all. But if it was a ranked mode, regardless, we still need some sort of average points system on a leaderboard. I need to see, if it's going to be a couple of weeks or something like that before it resets, I need to see an average points like adjustment, because people are grinding games, and they're going for things like getting tons of kills rather than just playing the game perfectly and getting as many points per game as they can, and not just hot dropping and trying to W key the entire game. And that would increase the level of play throughout those games entirely. That still doesn't solve ranked mode. And for ranked mode, they need to do so much more. I haven't seen anything. What their upcoming plans are is like spending the hype points to get in a pop-up. I don't know. That doesn't sound enticing to me. That doesn't sound like a mode that I will grind and play, because hype points are easy to get as they stand right now.
So I've got my own thoughts on how an arena could work, but what I'm really interested in is what they hinted at how it will work post World Cup in the competitive AMA they did on the Fortnite competitive subreddit, right? And they mentioned something more akin to creating a hype economy, right? And hype, of course, like being the point system within arena, and talking about how higher tiered queues, or the ones that have tighter leaderboards, require that have a higher bus fare, right? Like an entry cost, which is really interesting to me, because a lot of my competitive gaming experience comes from Magic the Gathering, right? And that's just like how Magic the Gathering works, both in an online setting and in paper, right? Like, you've got entry costs, right? Like, not just cash, but also like you can't make it into the Pro Tour until you've done all these other things, right? And then specifically in Magic Online, Magic the Gathering's, I think it's called Magic Arena or something like that. You have these sort of ranked entry costs being implemented as well into some of the systems. And I think that's interesting, sort of creating this economy of, you have to grind up enough hype points, which is essentially your elo, this weird loose form of elo in the basic arena format, right? And then you spend those hype points, instead of a 3 bus fare duos match or whatever, you're getting into a 20 bus fare duos match. And the only way to continually play against really good players is to be continually doing well, getting enough points to support yourself going infinite in these higher, harder queues, right? And that's something that's interesting, but I agree that ultimately, like, we need, like, it seems interesting, and it's gonna be a very big departure from what we have now. But as far as for what we have right now, we basically just need a capped how many points you can get, and a greater form of, we need like a natural decay, and we need higher bus fares at the top end, right? If we add those two things, that'll be enough to make it super interesting. Watching pros vie for the top spot and stuff. Yeah. Sorry, what was that, Bob?
Yeah. I said, not if you don't have a leaderboard.
Yeah, you need the leaderboard. You need to be able to show, who's at the top of these, of these ranks and stuff. And as long as you can do that, that immediately turns arena into something interesting.
Um,
I'm curious though, RESPRiT, what are you looking for the most for arena? Like, what is the best, your ideal situation?
So the solution that I personally like the most is this kind of strength of lobby thing. I think when you have these kind of like buy-ins and kind of abstract representations of elo, you get weird issues where, like, for example, the upper percentile players can just grind infinite hype points, for example. But if you have just kind of like this average MMR of the entire lobby, and then you kind of calculate player rating based on how they stack up against other players, that feels like it's closer to a step in the right direction, because you're not kind of using inaccurate measures of skill. or less, more loose measures. But the other thing that I've been thinking about more recently is just, and you kind of touched on this, Bala, this kind of culture surrounding ranked, like outside of the system that's actually implemented. Because right now players, they drop in an arena, and if you're really good, you just destroy people, right? Tfue, Sway dropping 42 kills. That's like, how is that even possible, right? Like,
No.
that should never happen in what is like supposed to be the ranked mode. That's insane. And I think part of the culture reason is that pros can get away with it, but also like, I've never felt once in an arena game like the other players were taking it seriously versus like when I used to play League, when I played ranked, like everybody plays ranked in League, and even though it's like kind of the default casual mode, even when you get up there, you still, you care about winning a lot, and you play to win. And it doesn't feel like you play to win even in arena. So I don't know what Epic can do. The leaderboard, I think, is a huge thing.
Yeah, the leaderboard fixes it, right? Part of what makes you care about every game in League is that you are actively watching this important to you number that gauges how close you are to being a pro, right? How close you are to like being considered good, your next like real like step up in level. You get to just watch and see go up and down after every game, which is like tough mentally. But like if a leaderboard, similarly, you're watching your position go up on that leaderboard up and down live just while other pros and stuff are playing, like that's that makes people care more.
I don't think a leaderboard solves it completely. You need that matchmaking system to work, and queue times or not, that matchmaking system needs to match Tfue against people of his even skill, otherwise he's going to smurf. And that's the nature of it, right?
That's true.
You can't have pros playing in FMPL lobbies because they will just ruin the lobby for everybody else. Like, they can do things that nobody else can, and they will destroy the lobby and destroy the integrity of that game for everybody else, because it's really funny. You talk about culture, and pros are the guys who complain so much about stormfighting and WKing and all this stuff, but like when they go into another game where they think that all these idiots from FMPL are stormfighting and whatever, they end up being the people who do it the most because they can just do it, and it's fine for them, and they're like, these guys are scrubs. So without a good matchmaking system, that's not going to solve it, and that's unfortunately probably always going to happen in a BR game. And even as somebody who isn't at the top of the leaderboard, a leaderboard doesn't necessarily do much if they can't have direct feedback between playing a game well and going up properly, right? They might play a game well and not win and still not have that satisfaction of going up the leaderboard because it's just not enough for something like that. It's the difficult thing is one person gets the satisfaction of winning and nobody gets any sort of indication about how well they did regardless. So there's no who won the game total in terms of points. There's no, these people did well in the game. There's just the winner. That's it. And that is the most satisfying feeling. And that's what people is going to keep people playing, but only one person per game can do it. So it's difficult when you talk about that. I think the leaderboard doesn't solve that completely.
I think, obviously you get points on kills and points for high placement and stuff. And in my dream world, you get 100, there's 100 points available based on placement, right? So you can very clearly have that feedback even better of like, yeah, I didn't win, but I scored 30th for the 10th time in a row. So like, that's okay, I guess. You can see consistent improvement there at least. Cool. Thank you so much for bringing this topic up, RESPRiT. I hope you have a fantastic evening.
No worries. Have a nice day.
Have a good one, dude.
Peace. Dope. Yeah, Arena is a tough one, and I think it's hard to talk about it too much without seeing, what's happening post World Cup. What they've hinted at is such a big move away from traditional systems, even what we have right now, that it makes it tough to speculate exactly what that's going to look like. All we can really talk about is like the end effects we want it to have, which is we want every game to feel impactful and feel like we're working towards something.
My biggest hope is that they focus on it as a main focus, because again, we've talked about it before. I think they need to focus on Arena. Otherwise, people are going to get really frustrated with playing pubs against people who can just stomp on them all the time. That is going to be a thing that is going to haunt them. So they need to focus on Arena, I think. Just want to give a quick shout out to RESPRiT. He makes such awesome videos. He's the guy who made the old school players are still here or whatever it was.
Yes.
A bunch of awesome other other content, but that video got me so hyped for World Cup.
It was pretty lit. All right, I want to reiterate, hop in the Discord, guys. Bring your questions, call in. We're gonna have a good time here with this. All right. We've got a couple chat submissions here, Ball. You ready for this?
I am ready. Bring on the chat submissions.
Here we go. DestinysJesus, long-time supporter of this show. He says light machine guns, quad launchers, and clingers should all return in time for Worlds. So here's the thing. He's not here to defend himself, via voice. He's just in the chat, and I can ignore that. So I'm going to say, Destiny's, you out of your damn mind, boy. Like, holy hell. Quad launchers? That's worse than Airstrike, right? Light machine guns. Yeah or nay, Bala, as I go through them one at a time. Light machine gun. Nay. Quad launcher.
Nay. Quad launcher? Maybe.
In addition or instead of something?
I don't know.
Why would you want that?
Quad launchers are okay. Like there was an element of strategy, not strategy, but like at least something that was like, this is a way that I can retake high ground. I hated them like as a spammy explosive thing, but I liked them in the fact that you didn't have to target and hit the perfect weak point on high ground to knock it down. You could
spam it
lightly chip at it, right? You could chip away at it and end up making a fight for high ground actually happen. And it wasn't that you just won high ground because of it, but there was a point in time where the quad was really good at just everybody, as many people as they can carry it and trying to just use it solely to take high ground. And to me, that was interesting, but I can't get over the fact that it's just a spammy explode weapon, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, because that one specific situation you talk about, like similar with me in the Airstrike, that one specific situation sounds nice, but it's every other situation where it's just bullshit, right? Like, I mean, hell, even just quad launchers in the mid game is such a pain. Like, they didn't even do that much damage, right? It's just so much. It's just nonstop. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, fam. I don't know about that. And then his final one is clingers, and I think that's a hard pass for me, especially with heavy snipers still in the game. Clingers are just too good. They're too good, and it's guaranteed damage, right? It's just guaranteed damage, and that's lame. There needs to be counterplay to everything.
They're not guaranteed damage anymore. No, they fixed that. There's no method to get guaranteed damage ever anymore.
Unless you're like under a cone, because if you put them on someone's roof, they'll phase through, even if you're turbo building it.
Okay, but it still drops and then blows up after a certain amount of time, so you can still react to it. It's not like
theoretically you could get out of the box. That's true. That's true. Yeah. That's a good point.
The only time it's guaranteed is if you stick or you have a rift to go, which don't exist anymore. So there's not actually any guaranteed damage aspect to it, but like still, like it's just not fun, man. Like they were fun the first day that they were out because it was fun to stick people and try to stick people as best as you can. But I don't know, Tim. I'm not a fan.
I'm not a fan either. Here's another question from Gaming King Striker. He's asking,
can we bring bouncers back? Sorry, before we go, can we bring bouncers back? Can we add bouncers to that list and just bring bouncers back? Like,
if we brought bouncers back, we'd get rid of shockwaves.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That'd be great for trios.
Back,
honestly, like low key, that'd be great for trios. Like bouncers suck from trying to get low to high, and they're not even that great trying to get from like long horizontal distances unless you already have height. So it's almost kind of like win more in that way. If you already have a high position, you're already in one of the best positions, presumably, right? Like most of the time, depends on moving circles. But so the logistics of it are a little weird, but generally speaking, they're just a blast to have for whatever setting.
They were great kill incentive. They were so good kill incentive. Like that was the whole point of playing.
Get them bouncers.
Back then it was just kill people and get their bouncers, and it was relatively guaranteed that somebody would have at least
it's blue rarity
or something like that. Yep. And
on the note,
that was awesome. I love that.
On the note of traps, like we still have the turret in the game, and it's weird. I feel like over the last month or so, I've seen it being used more than I had before, right? Like I can hop into a custom, I can play a night of customs, and I can maybe catch 2 games where someone is like legit putting down pressure with a turret with their team, right? Especially in trios. I'm not trying to argue for its viability. I just kind of want to bring it up. Like it's this interesting thing. It's still in the game. Is there a way that it can be used in a legitimate fashion to bring you closer to that dub, right? And it's particularly interesting to me in light of trios because you've got a lot more support around the guy who's on the turret.
Okay, I hate the concept of a turret as a support item. I love the concept of an item that can break stairs, and that's why I never drop turrets. And I'm still surprised that I said when I first saw Mr. Savage place a turret to break stairs that this is going to be meta, and people are going to start carrying these and making sure that they place them when they can break stairs. I love that concept, and I think it's really cool. And I'm super shocked that it's never ever been really used that way, and a lot of people are just dropping them. I think that you're seeing a resurgence in the turret because it got buffed a little bit, and it actually is. It's pretty good pressure. It is, like, but not against somebody who's good and can just break LOS after building a little bit.
Yeah, so, it's like an immediate thing, right? Like I see somebody drop a turret, get some damage on their box, and then at that point, is it really worth it, right?
Yep.
And I think generally
Turrets suck. Turrets are trash. I hate them. Get them out. Or keep them in, but let people. We need to do a better job of using them for their best purpose.
Yeah.
Or
just
that does that.
Just replace them with bouncers. Problem solved.
True.
Okay, let's bring in our next guest, Senor DestinysJesus. Man, how are you doing tonight?
Hello. My Discord keeps.
Hello. You're good. What's up, boss? How you doing, Mr. Full Time?
More content.
Let's go. What's up, man?
More
Best
content.
part of the show is when I say a stupid question.
Uh-oh. You better stick to the question you told me you were gonna ask.
I've got two questions. I'm going to do second one after, right? First question is, wages are probably top 3 most boring things I've seen, apart from grass growing and paint drying. It's literally terrible to watch a wager ever. And I think the only reason anybody ever does wages is because it's free money from like 8-year-old viewers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know why everybody's practicing wagers when they could be doing scrims or something. I guess it's more boring. But like literally every single qualified player streams wagers, like if they're streaming.
I mean, that's changed the last like 2 days, right? I mean, to an extent, right? Like it sucks. I kind of get it from one on their perspective, right? Like it sucks practicing for a tournament in a way that you're not actually going to be playing the tournament, right? Like 3,000 mats and no siphon and slow farming and all that fun stuff, right? And customs. I can get that being sucky, especially after weeks of it. And then finally getting more information on the event. Like, I get it. And I also get the other side of it of like, well, this is boring, and like boring for me, or doesn't feel worth it to me, even if it's not boring. Whereas I can make money, right? Most of these streamers are making money, and they're like getting decent viewer counts, right? Like they're totally happy with it. They're like, I got this downtime where other forms of practice doesn't feel useful. And I've got an opportunity that I can take to like make some cash off people who just want to play me. And we can talk about, whether that's a thing. And then 2, like people generally like, or it seems to me that people generally like watching it, right?
I kind of like watching it just for a little bit. I wouldn't watch it for long term, and I also wouldn't watch it if it was random person playing against person that I watch religiously. Like it's just a random person. It's so boring. It is really boring because most of the time it's just stomping, or it's a really how it would go. And so I don't know, but one thing that I know is that it is definitely not good practice, like you said.
Yeah. And
that's because it's infinite mats. People don't. Well, it's not always infinite mats, but people still aren't finding the right format for exciting 1v1s. Like I would never cast a 1v1 because it's always going to be the same thing, right? I've talked about this in the past. Like a 1v1 mode that is what we do right now would be awful because every single fight would end up in the same way. It's just, okay, he does this really cool technique, takes high ground, they shoot each other, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing that makes it, there's no tension. It's just the same thing over and over. Start the fight, go, finish the fight, box fight, whatever. Yep. You need to limit mats. You need to make it, actually 1v1 mode would honestly almost never work. You need to limit mats really hard and make it so that you can maybe find some mats somewhere on the map and repower up and stuff like that, and maybe a bunch of bounce. Like it needs to be like an arena shooter if it's got to be that way, because bounce pads somewhere maybe that you can get away, disengage from stuff, and like go get more mats or that sort of thing. I think maybe that would be fun to watch and and to play, and it would actually be good practice for the BR mode.
I think on the flip side of that is you could approach it more like a fighting game, right? And do like legit like a stand-up fighter, right? And do a time limit, like 60 seconds and limited mats.
Yes.
And those two, you might not even have to do much more than the current setup to add at least a little more pressure and make the fights faster. And like the actual events that happen in the fight might not be that much more interesting. But it's something that we can do in creative now to definitely make 1v1s more interesting generally, right?
Yeah, but it still wouldn't be that interesting if there was no like actual abilities besides the building techniques that everybody has, because there's no comeback. There's very few comeback mechanics besides just hitting a headshot and stuff like that. So it still would need work, in my opinion.
Sure,
like huge work.
Yeah, totally. And I would love to see it not be, if we're going to be working with a 1v1 mode as its own competitive thing, I think that you can and should throw the whole idea of like make it as much like a real fight as you can, because they're already not like real fights at all. So let's just throw away like always using combat AR or pump SMG AR, right? Like everyone starts with a flintlock and bouncers. Now we got something cool happening, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Destiny's
what about lifesteal 1v1s?
Ooh.
Like, so you could power up, like let's say you both got minis, right? But you could like, let's say, when you're 50 white and 50 shield, and then you tag them for like 70, you get the lifesteal, and they can mini up, and then you get an advantage. That would make it a bit more dynamic than just mini fights.
Sure, but still it wouldn't make it fun to watch. All right.
Yeah,
probably. Same thing. I really think that a drastic change needs to happen to make a 1v1 mode or a 2v2 mode viable and fun to watch and fun. Well, it is fun to play. 1v1s are fun to play, but like fun to watch, impossible. Like, bruh, you need to make the speed of characters faster. You need to be able to bunny hop. Floor is lava, something like that. You need
just wants quick
power-ups
live
all over the map. Like, yeah, hell yeah, I want quick. I freaking want quick so hard. But with the building aspect, then suddenly all the techniques that you learned are going out the window because your speed is faster and you're bouncing all around the map. But you could also
now you have to pick between a 1v1 player or a BR player because they're so different.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard too.
Hey, I want to see that, man. I mean, to a certain extent, like if you're a 1v1 player and you're only like you're just wagering all the time, you're not going to be a good BR player, and vice versa. So it's already there to some extent, not as crazy as it would be in this type of situation. But man, we need these mods, right? Yeah. We have freaking auto chest taken off right now, which is a mod of a mod. Like, come on, man.
Truth. Facts.
That's where the best awesome games come from. So I'm down to fuck around with the interesting world we live in Fortnite, where we can build and do crazy things. I'm down.
Yeah, I think that there's only a few situations where watching 1v1s is actually really interesting. Either it's two names fighting, and that's fun for people to watch, just to be like, yeah, Tifu like clapped Aiden or whatever, right? And then two, if you're watching to learn, like that is very interesting, right? For I think most competitive players, if they're seeking out 1v1s to watch, it's because they're trying to learn from the player they're watching, and that kind of transcends isn't the right word, but that goes beyond just entertainment, right? Like ideally you're putting an effort in and trying to learn something, even if it's minimal effort.
Yep.
And I do think that there needs to be changes to make something interesting. That being said, to kind of sum up and re-answer your question there, Destinies, or make it more relevant to your topic, is that I don't blame, like I don't think there's any room to be upset at these guys for not prior to Trios Arena coming out yesterday, just focusing on like wagers and 3v3. A lot of people are running 3v3 wagers, right? That's probably in a lot of ways better than trio and squad customs for certain things, right? Like, but I would be pretty surprised to see anybody. Well, I mean, again, like this isn't that big of a tournament either, right? Like people may just be deciding that it's more important for me to be focusing on my individual mechanics leading into the World Cup than it is for me to like spend a lot of time playing trios.
Yep.
And that could totally be a thing too, right? That's going to negatively affect the quality of this trios cup, generally speaking.
All right. Last question is, you see the skin thing I posted with Let's She? That's not mine, by the way.
I did see it.
Where it's got org set skins, and then that's the color theme, and then the player on the back. So Convertible trolling again, GG. And what's it called? All right, so you've got set like org skins, and then you could buy them. Do you think that would sell? I think honestly that would sell better than the world, like the football skins, theoretically. Like if you could play as Tifu in his own colors, or I don't even like phase mongrel or something. You can have like a red with a mongrel on the back, and then all the little kids can run around thinking they're mongrel and do all sorts. And then you can have any combination at all, like how with the football you've got the countries. You can even do country specific skins.
Which they do for soccer skins already, though.
Yes, so many different skins that are evolved.
Yeah. That concept has always been awesome to me, especially the way that other games do it, which is they provide a certain amount of the revenue to the players, and that makes it awesome. CSGO with the stickers, Dota does something specific with the teams. I think
League
with the
does it.
compendiums. League does it. Yeah,
I think
that
Overwatch
is
does.
awesome. I'm not sure. I don't know how it all works, but like. I love that concept. I don't think we're ever going to see it, unfortunately. I just not at the current state of the game, right? Where it feels like obviously esports, Fortnite competitive is not, something that there's too much. It's not the main focus, right? We know this time and time again. There's a huge focus on it because of the World Cup and everything, but obviously the casual base is still hugely outweighs everything else, and that's all they really will care about. So sure, they might make a little bit of money from the competitive scene, which is good, but is it really more than it is for, releasing a banana skin and doing proper like skin releases and stuff like that? I don't think they see it that way yet.
Ultimately,
but I would love it.
Ultimately, it'd be another source of revenue for content creators, first and foremost, or not even that, just like people in the community, right? Generally speaking, not specifically competitive players. And because of that, you're going to see Tfu's jersey, in-game jersey skins sell, hand over fist, whereas like dubs, not even close, right? So I think it's definitely...
You could do like, sorry to interrupt, but you could do like a support or creator system where like there's 160 different players like qualified, like roughly. And then you could do like, I don't know, like less than 1% of the money goes to each specific player directly, because obviously they're all getting paid after World Cup. So you could do an addition of everything added up from the skins. Epic can take 8%, but still the rest of the chunk is absolutely massive for the players, especially players that can't like last. Still, it's a lot of money, but the extra skin revenue would be insane.
Yeah, if it happened, yeah. I agree. I think it's a fantastic idea. I would love to see, I don't think it's necessary to do this, but I would love to see some sort of way to push the idea that this is a way to support your favorite competitive players and not just your favorite players or streamers or what YouTubers or whatever, generally speaking. I think that having more for everybody, whoever's making content, however they're doing it, whether it's through content creation strictly or through being a pro player, is great, right? Like, it's fantastic. I would love to see a way to funnel more of that specifically into the pro scene, into the pro players. I don't know how that would work with this idea in particular, but that would be like my only real criticism of it, right? It's just that it could be even better than the idea proposed.
I want the spec system to at least do that and have jerseys on the players in game while we watch them. That'd be really cool. At least that's what Counter-Strike used to do.
That'd be so sick.
I actually know it's what every game does now, but Counter-Strike started doing that and it looked awful, but it was so good. I was like, oh my God, it's actually, it's that in game. It's crazy. Nah, cool. I like it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Destinys.
For it.
I hope you have a fantastic evening.
Bye.
See ya.
Peace. Yeah, I like that idea a lot. I don't think there's any real downsides, right? Giving people jerseys or like even if it's just a back bling specific for like you qualify for the World Cup, you get a back bling you can use anywhere, and all it really is though is just like a flat decal of your name on a backpack or something, right? Like, that'd be so cool.
There was like a leaked World Cup skin type of thing. I don't know what it's going to be used for or something like that. But there's going to be some cosmetics apparently about the World Cup, so that could be cool.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. Oh, whoops, we're grabbing the wrong people because I'm a bot. Let's bring in our next caller. How's it going? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Convertible. And
What's up? What's up? West Coast Convertible. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Wow, that was hard. I was gonna say phenomenal, but then I also wanted to say fantastic. Phenomenal. I'm doing phenomenal.
If you're phenomenal, then I'm phenomenal.
Perfect. What's your what topic you want to talk about, Convertible?
I want to talk about how aim assist needs a buff.
Whoa, you're gonna have to explain this.
Okay, so Fortnite has crossplay, obviously, and there's a huge difference between using keyboard and mouse versus using the controller. Some of the advantages of keyboard are obviously binds. You can fully customize your binds, everything like that, and you have way more keys to work with than on a controller. One of the advantages of a controller is aim assist, but is aim assist a true advantage when you put everything into it? There, if you look at the percentage of console players that actually qualified, console, controller players that actually qualified for World, and you compare that to the amount of PC players that qualified for Worlds, why is there such a disparity if there is an actual issue with the aim assist system? And is it an issue with the system, or is it with people abusing this?
Sure. Yeah. So there's kind of like a couple parts to this argument, right? Sort of the underlying base part here is controller players aren't like consistently popping off, tons of them. So that could be a viable reason to assume that like aim assist isn't as bad as a lot of people like to think it is. And like I concur. I don't think aim assist is as large of a problem, but I think where maybe my opinion differs from yours slightly is that I don't think that the reason we don't see more controller players in general, it isn't an aim issue, right? Like I think there's much more that goes into that. It's things like inventory management. It's things like rotating through your item slots. It's things like speed of being able to build, right? Like obviously there's some cracked builders, but there's a difference between playground style building and like tunneling, like for all the way across the circle. And so at least for controller players, I know you kind of mentioned Nintendo Switch and iOS as well, and we can get into that, but generally for controller players, I think that I don't think personally aim assist is broken, and I also don't think that aim assist not being good enough is what's holding them back. I think it has more to do with the rest of the control scheme and the layout and what's possible and what's reachable at any given moment. And honestly, just the failing of joysticks in general as an input format, right?
So yeah, I completely agree with you there. I did want to touch on one thing I said. I don't necessarily think that it's the lack of aim assist being... I don't necessarily think it's the lack of aim assist that is causing these players to not do well. I just think that if aim assist were to increase, or if the logistics were out on how it operates, if there was any type of buff, whether it's it's an indirect buff via transparency on how the system operates, or a strength buff, anything of that nature, we could sort of understand how it operates, how it works.
I think that's the core of everything, right? I don't think aim assist is consistent at all. You watch a controller play one day, he's hitting all sorts of shots. You watch him the next day, all of a sudden he's not hitting anything, and you literally don't know the difference. And there's all of a sudden it's just completely different. Is it ping? Is it FPS? What's going on here? And that is a huge thing. FPS. We know aim assist gets affected by FPS. We know that's why PC players who are using controller are way better than console players, are way better than people who have shitty PCs. That is a reason. And that is also a reason why they do poorly in endgame. And it's factual that controller players just can't hang in endgame. Not like, forget about their tunneling skills, forget about any of that stuff. It's just their aim just doesn't work. And that is something they rely on. It's not a bad thing. But so on that note though, it's Fortnite is the only game where aim assist works how it does. You can't name another game. This is the only game that it works in such a weird way where you spam L2 and do all this, like, and it's so strong, and like sometimes it's so strong, sometimes it's not. Go play Halo and you can just, exactly how the aim assist is going to operate every single time. It's consistent, because and it's not that people know exactly how it works. They don't know the algorithm behind the aim assist, but it's consistent enough that they can learn its patterns. It's just like a recoil system, right? You get close enough at this range, here's where you're going to need to be for it to go to where you want it to be. That's the
Have either of you guys ever plugged a controller into Apex? Because Respawn, the developers behind Apex, they got this shit down pat, right? You can adjust the minutia of the aim assist curve. They literally give you a graph, and you can adjust how it curves, how it slows down, when it slows down. They have a bunch of different presets for like linear aiming, so it's just like raw. It's always going to go a certain distance, no matter how quickly or how you did it. Or you can set up your own personalized curve depending on what you like to do and that kind of thing. that could be a huge indirect buff and an incredible quality of life feature if it was implemented not just for aiming but also for building in Fortnite. And then you can say, when I've got my build out, I want my curve, my sensitivity curve to work this way, so I can push it to the right and know I'm gonna spin around and not have to wait for a ramp up time as the controller input, you know, speeds up its velocity. You know, that exists. Those sorts of things. I think that goes hand in hand with transparency, right? Because if you're going to give those features, you have to give the information about how it works, right? And I do think that there's a ton of room to grow in that area that could make controller players more, like the controller, more viable input format for all the other parts of the game, that then aim assist becomes something to look at as, okay, wait, is it overpowered? Because everyone can build and do this shit, right?
Can we dispel with this fiction that controller should and can be equal to players using a keyboard and mouse? Like, let's be honest here. It's never been the case. Every single game where you've seen a controller player and you've seen a PC player, the PC player is always going to have the higher cap. It's just always going to be a thing. You're sure. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's been a fact for the last 10 years. PC players have the higher skill cap. More than that, yeah. I mean, it's just like. This sure, aim assist definitely needs changes, especially if you're going to keep them in the same lobbies. But why? Well, it's not working. It isn't working. Is keeping them in the same lobby working at all? No, not at all. Not even close.
There definitely needs to be a lot more balancing, and I think the way that you can do that is either implement quality of life changes or even buff the aim assist system.
I think it can be, Bala. I think that's the point. I think that if it can be, why not, right? You know what I mean? Like if it can be elevated to that position,
you were just nodding your head to the fact.
No, I was shaking at first.
Players, you were PC, so you don't think that PC players have a way higher skill?
No, they obviously do because of how implementation has worked in the past and works currently. What I'm saying is, why just call it a fiction and throw the baby out with the bathwater instead of saying, hey, if they want to work on making it more viable, sweet, right? If they get to a point where with whatever tweaks or clever system they figure out makes it so that like there's a fair but similar skill cap, why wouldn't you be all for that, right? Like,
because it's like completely arbitrary and like unfair to give one platform a thing that is gonna work for them and this is how it works for them, and then the other platform have something different. Like that's a huge issue right now. Even with keyboard and mouse, like we have so many more binds that it's like not even. You know what I'm saying? Like they have to literally physically change the controller to make it a viable thing. I don't care how much you change aim assist, but even if you do change aim assist, if you make it so strong that like that it doesn't make sense, right? If you make it so strong that they're viable against PC players, then all of a sudden PC players, we feel completely useless because they have something that we literally can't do. They don't have to practice as hard to get to where you're just basically bringing the skill floor up rather than bringing this or moving the skill ceiling out.
But only if the way to do it is by adjusting aim assist, right? Like if we leave aim assist alone and we just change how aiming works and give you a finer control, not aiming, but like literally looking, you know, and give you finer control of how those curves work, right? Like that's just as much control as you have over your polling rate and your sensitivity. You can change all of those things on your mouse right now if you open up your software,
you should
right?
Be able to do that 100%. But
if those changes are enough,
you can't change the thumbstick. It has properties that you cannot change. Like eventually you will reach a limit on how you can use a thumbstick. So like again, you have to physically change the controller to make it balanced against I don't know, convertible. Go ahead.
I think that, yeah, sure, PC doesn't have aim assist and whatnot, right? But I think that, sure, you're going to have certain players playing to other advantages, like controller players playing for their aim assist advantage. I think at that point you have different types of games going on. One person's playing a game of opportunity window where he's looking for an opportunity to use what he knows how to do. And another person is looking for an opportunity on how he can play his advantages on a mouse and keyboard. It's just two different games being played at that point.
Exactly. So why are we doing it? Like, why are we even talking about changing aim assist? Like, why? They're two different games. Like, you're playing two different games when you have a controller versus having a PC.
They're not equal games.
Exactly. I 100% agree.
So Convertible, then you're in favor of removing controller players entirely from the current competitive pool and totally separating based on input?
No, I'm completely against that, actually. I think that if the right balancing is done and aim assist does receive a buff, whether it's quality of life, whether it's strength, whether it's anything, that it's going to even out the disparity in the games that are being played in terms of mouse and keyboard game versus controller game.
I don't understand how you can say that they're different games and then want them to be in the same game. Like, doesn't that literally?
I mean,
I think it's
thing?
I think it's misunderstanding. Like, it's a different game as far as like how you're playing the game, like what your game is. You're still both playing Fortnite, right? But
No. You sure you're still both playing Fortnite, but you are having different goals. You are doing things differently than another player, and that is not good for the game.
That's totally good.
Because there is 100 players in the game, okay, and if they all have their different objectives and whatever, and you have no idea what the hell this guy's objective is, whether it's he's playing a controller and he wants to W key me. Like, I was already saying this when Aiden was doing his shit at PAX West. Like, it was not good because you would never know, is that Aiden that you're going to run up to, and what do I have to do differently against him? Sure, there's play styles, you can whatever, but like, you are literally you are forcing somebody to go against their goal because you have a different goal, and I think that is awful for a competitive game. I think that is completely awful.
I disagree completely.
Think that's a scale. I don't think that's the scale that we're here at talking about with controller players versus PC players right now with aim assist and all this stuff. But like, that blows my mind that we could have multiple goals. That's why those kill incentive bullshit, like,
what does a smoke grenade do in Counter-Strike? It completely says you don't get to play here. You don't get to do what you want to do. You have to change your game plan.
Everybody has a smoke grenade, Tim.
Anyone can be playing on a controller. Anyone can WQ you. Anyone can hit a snap headshot.
You start the game and you're playing on PC versus controller. That's not the same thing at all.
I mean, once you started the round and you don't have a smoke, you don't have a smoke, right? I mean, that's a silly comparison anyway.
That's your problem. You can.
So is starting a game without playing on a controller. But the point is that whether or not Aiden's in front of you and whether or not he has a controller, it shouldn't change. Like, it shouldn't. You're like acting like it's this crazy thing of like changing how, like, if you don't know that they're on a controller, it completely changes the way you play the game. But the point is what we're saying is that like why, right? A PC player can play just as reserved as a controller player or vice versa, right? Like, it's not like the controller player right now, as things stand, is going to hit a nutty shot on you when he W keys that you just can't on a PC. We've already talked about the skill gap differences between the inputs, right? So like, what I'm confused as to what the actual problem is there with there being, you know, I'm for splitting the lobbies, right? But I'm confused what this particular problem is.
If people have different goals in playing a game, right? Different goals being, oh, I have to use my advantages with the controller to just go for high elims and not play endgame, and that's the way I want to play. That makes it so that you end up in situations where if you run into somebody, then their goal is to kill you no matter what, even if they die, and your goal is to survive. You end up in situations where you feel that you got cheated out of the game because you played against somebody who wanted to kill you at all costs, no matter what happens to their life.
I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think having different goals in games is not negative to the competitive experience.
Well, and this is a compounding issues thing, right? Because you can fix that with format, not, you know, rewarding placement heavier than it rewards kills, and then whether or not it's controller or PC doesn't matter at all, right? You eliminate that potential problem you have with that situation. Also, we kind of already have that situation, right? Especially in online tournaments and online play and ranked play, because someone can say I have 0 ping, I'm going to W key and just get kills. That's, you know, just as big a game changer as having the controller. And I think that as long as you resolve that particular issue, if that's your issue, if you have an issue with some people going into a game trying to get points through eliminations and some people trying to get it through winning, if you have a problem with that, the only way to fix it is through format, and it doesn't have anything to do with controller versus PC. Like, if you have that problem, that's a way bigger problem than just like the reason for why you should keep controllers out.
No, because what happens if you get a format that actually this happened, okay? If you have a format that makes it impossible for you to play for eliminations only, then controller players all of a sudden can't do well in that format. They just can't. And we saw that ESO Katowice. Aiden and Nick Merckx, they shit the bed completely. Even though they were getting, I mean, they were getting eliminated early. They were not having the best of fragging days, but they couldn't play because the format just wouldn't let them. They needed to get endgame in that format.
Which is what we're talking about. Make changes so that they can play endgame better.
But that...
I mean, like, what's the problem there?
No, so yes, the problem is this whole thing, right? Like again, I'm struggling so hard to see why we need to put them in the same spot. Like it's so difficult.
I don't think we need to.
The goals.
Sorry, no. I was agreeing. Like, I don't think we need to put them in the same room together. You know what I mean? They don't need to be in the same competitive lobby. But I don't think that, like, the only argument is that, like, if they wanted to do that and they wanted to do it by making controller more viable in the other aspects of the game where they're falling behind right now, and that's possible. You know, all these are assumptions, assuming that that's possible. Then, like, what like, with those assumptions in place, that changes be made so that they could play for the win in competitive lobbies. And that's really the only assumption, right? Like, if that assumption is true, then what's the actual issue of approaching the game this way? In a new way. Sure, it's new. It's the way no games have ever done it before. And probably for a really long time to come, controller players still won't be able to. But if there's a way to do it with it still feeling fair and not just like hand-holdy, right? It's just changes to how looking works or whatever. Like, you think it's an issue. I don't think it's an issue. Convertible, you want them to stay together. I don't know. I think ultimately we're just gonna have to ride the wave with whatever Epic picks, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, a buff to aim assist really does even things out, whether it's direct or indirect. Well, yeah, pretty much my thoughts on it.
Fair enough.
You need to do it in a way that doesn't piss off the majority of your competitive player base.
But I think that separating them just completely means just separating the viewership, right? Like,
Yeah,
Okay, what's wrong with that?
that's a big problem. The majority of players are on console. They're gonna want to watch console players.
No, they won't. We've seen this happen many times. Yes, we've seen this happen. Every game that has had separate tournaments that has PC players, the PC players will win in viewership no matter how big the console population is, because
Call of Duty?
everybody wants to watch the best. Call of Duty didn't have PC for the longest time.
But aren't its tournaments still played on controllers?
Yes, but again, they didn't have PC for the longest time. This is the first one where you're actually going to see PC.
We've had
be
PC
relevant.
since Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 2. We've had PC for like 5+ years.
I'm uneducated on that concept. Besides the fact that I'm pretty sure they're also released later, right?
Probably.
PC was almost But regardless, that Call of Duty is the only example of that. Regardless of how the logistics work out, and that's also because they have had such a storied
console history,
and their community is completely based up and built up from that, right? You can't just take a new game that is suddenly both and whatever.
But I think it's arguable, right, that
Gears. I don't even think Gears was on PC.
it will be, and the old ones are. They made it eventually, one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, really interesting topic. Thanks, Convertibles.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, totally.
You guys have a wonderful day.
You too.
I love Convertibles, man. What a nice
I love you
film.
too, and I love the idea.
Oh, he's still here. Oh, we were trying to talk about you behind your back. Whoops.
Good things though. That's nice. That's nice. I love the ideas that I give to Epic, and I know you do too, Paula.
All right, he's gone. We can talk about him again. Man, I love that guy.
I love that guy. Minus the fact that he wants aim assist buffed.
All right, we got our next caller.
The root of it was good to me. I kind of agree with the root of it, making it more consistent, making it know what it is.
Sure, it comes down to the core. You have to pick. And while a lot of us would prefer that they choose to split it, if they don't choose to split it, there does need to be changes, like you mentioned. You know, just to avoid the situation of all the controller players in the lobby playing for kills and not for the win. All right, let's bring in our next caller here. Hey man, what is
hey,
person? Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm Henry. I'm calling from West Virginia.
Hey, that's close to you, right, Paula?
No, I'm in Massachusetts. I mean,
Both
it's East Coast.
They're further east. They're east, across the Mississippi from me, so it's good enough. Good enough. What did you want to? What's your topic? What do you want to talk about, Henry?
Console specific tournaments.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about this. Yeah. You know, recently we had announced, not really announced, the Xbox tournament, right? I can't imagine they're going to do Xbox and leave PlayStation out.
Was it Xbox? So it was a platform-specific tournament. It didn't say anything about which platform it was.
It said Xbox. Yeah, like it's
really
Xbox Cup or whatever. So that's interesting to me. Like, I'm all for it, right? Like push ahead with it, right? Hopefully it's big. Hopefully it's huge. Hopefully it just draws more people in to play competitively and then push them, like funnel them towards like the overall larger pro scene, right? I think there's nothing to be lost by running many events for many different groups of people. I'm down for region specific events. I'm down for, as long as it's become, we're only doing region specific events. We're only doing console specific events, right? Like, as long as it's all spread out and people are enjoying what they're doing, like, I'm all for it, right? Like it's only a good thing in that aspect.
I think if you keep cross-platform big tournaments, World Cup, if that is the main focus, I think you actually must run console-specific or platform-specific, because that incentivizes them to get good enough to go into it. They get their taste of competitive, where they can actually compete, right? There is no chance for most of the people on console right now to compete in a World Cup qualifier. For most people. Obviously, there's the nutters, like, what was his name? Wiggs, who qualified for Winter Royale on console. But, like, that is a huge thing. I feel like there is a significant portion of the player base who has no experience in comp. They've only seen it a little bit, and they've never played it. So they really never get their feet wet, and they never understand, wow, this is fun. This is crazy. No matter what level the game is, no matter if it's a 40-man stacked endgame or a 10-person stacked endgame, competitive Fortnite is fun as hell. Like, when they get their feet wet, they will be hooked, and that will push them to try the next couple of things, to go to events, to go to local things, to play the local tournaments that are console only and stuff like that. And then eventually, maybe they will invest a little bit, or, you know, at least enough to play in PC lobbies.
It's a form,
the biggest thing. And
it's a form of grassroots growth, right? And that's how Magic the Gathering works. That's how fighting game communities work. You engage with your local scene to get a taste of, like, oh, like, first you engage with, like, your living room, right? You invite some friends over, you all play, you go, hey, I'm like way better than my friends. Let's see who else there is, right? And you play against your community, in this case, Xbox specific or whatever, or your region, whatever. You see how you match up there, and then you get to play within this group of people, work together, all get better until you're the best in that community. And then you get to move on to a wider one, and then a more global community, right? And compete in those. And I think I don't think that's the only way to do esports. I think it is a fantastic way to do it, though. And I will never have a problem with it, and I will never have a problem with supporting those sorts of endeavors, right? So, yeah, that's my take there. All right, we got a text.
My take too. We love it.
We love it. We got a text submission here from JCow, moderator on Fortnite Competitive, and he says the Fortnite guy is a huge source of his air quotes news for the current competitive scene. Do you think this will still be the case in the future? If not, what do you hope will happen in terms of reporting in the competitive scene? So basically he's saying the Fortnite guy is one of the main, like, if you are casually invested and you don't want to be checking individual Twitters and you don't want to be scouring Fortnite competitive or whatever, and you just want to have a consistent place you can always go to read up on the happenings in the pro scene, right? Whether that's drama, like we can't just say don't be interested in drama. People are always going to be interested in drama, right? And so, like, basically, the Fortnite guy is like the one really well-known spot, for better or for worse, and in my opinion. And I would absolutely love. I think there's a ton of room. Bala, you talk about filling the gaps, right? There's a gap there. Monster Deface has started a show recently. Sort of a last week in competitive Fortnite show. I forget the name of it. Forgive me. We had him on last week, but Monster Thoughts. And that's something that's taken off. It's gaining ground. That's something people should check out. But I do still think there's a gap here, right? There's a gap in fun and interesting. You know, do you know how many?
Let's just frame it this way. Look, how many subs does the Fortnite guy have? Okay. Like,
lots.
400,000, 500,000. He was nobody. He was nothing in the scene 3 months ago. Right before World Cup, nobody's ever heard of him. He made one video on Creo around.
Overwatch has heard about him.
yeah, but it's a new start, right? It's a new start. Sure. He already knows how to do it. He knows how to work the scene, whatever.
Sure.
400K subs on YouTube. That is literally the market for Fortnite news.
Yeah, that's it.
That is it. That's right there. It's gonna grow. It's gonna get bigger even. And right now, that is the captured market. That is the activated market. So let me tell you, he's the only guy who found the gap. Unfortunately, it is that guy who found the gap. Sure, very sensationalist, and for the most part in a negative way. No, in the negative way almost always. His sensationalism is always negative.
Yeah.
But he filled the gap. He really did. And somebody else needs to step up. Monster Defish is trying. There's a show called the Esports Talk Show, which is, you know, broad and talks about a bunch of different things. So not as much potential there, but like there's gaps. Let's fill them. Please, please, please get this guy out of here, because drama's fun. Drama's good. Like drama is very interesting, and that's fine. Look, as long as you don't make it negative and try to ruin people over petty drama is the only thing. Like, I'm so interested to know that, you know, that some players have beef with each other. Like, that's fun. As long as it's not hurtful and whatever. It's yeah, this is the storylines I want. I just don't want it from the Fortnite guy, man. Like, he ruins it. He makes it so bad that if I talk about, you know, obviously this was fake, but the mega young calc drama where it was a fake thing by the two of them. They colluded to make the Fortnite guy make a story on, which is hilarious. But like, if there was actually beef between those players, it'd be fun. Like, that's great. If somebody talks trash on stream and like says, man, Bizzle's the highest earner, but he only won because I didn't go to ESL Katowice, that'd be fucking content. Like,
it's different. It's like we have this need specifically within Fortnite, but also generally within the world, and even America specifically, like at large, right? Like this is a strong need for people who are willing to report on things that have happened, and that's it, you know, and leave it, right? Like it's okay to give your take. It's not okay to sensationalize, to present your take as what is actually happening, right? With Zexro and I think it was Click's situation, where, you know, the Fortnite guy sensationalized the hell out of that and essentially put words and feelings in people's mouths, right? Like that's not like, you know, the question mentions reporting and journalism. That's not what that is, right? Like definitely not. And I think there's definitely a gap for that. Also, do you know how many freaking like parody news sites, like the Onion style, other esports have? Like Legends, etc., etc. Dude, we can have that here. We can have that here. Who wants to like make a website and just put up amazing copy pasta about the happenings in Fortnite? That sounds great. I'd read that shit.
Yeah, I would read the shit out of that. That's hilarious. I love that content. Yeah, man. There's gaps fantastic. Everywhere. I talk about it all the time. Fill the gaps. Parody websites. Who's doing it first?
Who's doing it? Destiny's. Where you at?
Yeah, right. Maybe the ball and mustache thing can actually go somewhere.
Like off your face. I'm just kidding. I'm doing this. I'm there. Not as well though.
Oh boy. No, news is very interesting. Every other scene has a news reporter. Actually multiple reporters. Right? League has, what's the guy's name?
Travis Gafford.
Travis Gafford, awesome guy. I voted for him for esports personality of the year or whatever. There's Richard Lewis, who's dipped his toes a little bit into Fortnite sometimes. He's in CSGO. He's everywhere. Thorin, I have some issues with, but at a certain extent, like he's a good historian, and he gets his facts right, and he tries to make sure that he gets his facts right, and he doesn't start shit. The only things he starts shit about are himself
and TSM.
Yeah, but it was involving him, no? Wasn't it him like his ego getting into it? Like,
yeah, he's got a storied past, but generally speaking, yes, he's way better than the Fortnite guy.
I know Thorin from 2005.
Yeah.
Like, I know this guy for a long time, and I know his personality sometimes isn't the blood, but he still interviews people. Like, I haven't seen an interview with somebody yet, like besides like me. The only guy here, Arson. Oh, what's his name? Is his name Arson? I have to look it up. The 2K guy.
Yeah.
Look it up.
So, it's a gap. Fill it. Definitely want more. J-Cow, you should do it.
11 2K. He's
yes.
And it's awesome. It's so good. I just hope that he starts to like, you know, make the production quality really good and develop his voice, develop his interview style and all that. But it's starting to be really fucking good. Like, I'm going to his channel right now. He's interviewed Benji Fishy. He's interviewed me. He's interviewed a couple of people. And then he also did like this news piece where he just talks about certain happenings in the scene, like DestinysJesus becoming a full-time coach, which is awesome. I love to hear that.
Incredible.
I love
That's
to hear
fantastic.
about little things that I would never hear about. Obviously, I would hear about DestinysJesus becoming a full-time coach, but not everybody would, right? They just see his content and they don't follow him. So this is where they would hear from it.
Yep. All right, so Paul, I think we have time for one more chat topic here, and it's one that we've talked about a little bit, and everyone is still constantly talking about. This is from Willis is Cute, and it is: how do you think players with no LAN experience are going to perform under LAN pressure compared to those players who have already gone through their first set of trials and tribulations, if you will, on LAN? And oftentimes this is used as the classic, like, yeah, Dubs and Mega, Young Gods, they're great, but they're going to crumble under the pressure. Like, they're just not going to be able to perform against, Tfue, Bizzle, so on and so forth, the old guard.
Yep.
What are your thoughts? Bella?
Skill will outrank nervousness almost always. So if they have, there's probably a floor that you just need to break through with your skill that will completely break any sort of nervousness. And once you get that first taste, sure, you're still going to be nervous, but you're going to know how to play, and you're not going to be shaking. You're not going to be doing all this sort of, well, you might still be shaking, but still you can adapt to it, and you know what to do within it. So I think skill can overcome. And I think that is what the situation is going to be for like Mega Dubs. Mega Dubs have an interesting style that, in my opinion, might not work out at World Cup.
But not because it's on LAN. Like,
no, not because it's LAN. It's not because of wall taking or anything like that. It's because of the way that they play games
more generally.
They're yes. So, but players who don't have LAN experience, who can't get over that skill, like it's floor, I don't know what to call it, but they are going to crumble hard.
Yeah.
Dude, trust me.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but this is going to be the biggest stage that to start on this stage is ridiculous. Like, it is so insane. Luckily, it is it's not like playing in front of a Counter-Strike crowd, for example, in my opinion, because you're put behind like a pretty decent wall. Like, you have to stand up to see the crowd. Sure, there's a lot of lights, there's cameramen running all around, but you can isolate yourself pretty well into the game. Pretty well.
Well, the thing is, it's going to be more. Sure, you're in a new and unusual space. You're in front of a lot of people. There's all the additional pressure. Heck, even just the heat from lights from being on a stage is like a frustrating thing at times, right? Like, but it's going to be better than a lot of previous tournaments for these first timers than like the old guard had in their first time, because when it comes down to it, they're still going to sit down with their mouse and their keyboard, and they're going to play their game, right? Like that actually is a huge thing, right? Like, that's a big deal.
Duo.
With their own duo that they've been practicing with, right? I think that the players who lean on each other for their insecurities, like good friends should, and players who here's something. In the finals days, we saw that leaderboard peppered. There were very few gaps, and if there was ever a gap, it was basically just first place to second place. And otherwise, it was pretty like smooth distribution of points, right, up the leaderboard.
For what? Sorry.
World Cup qualifier finals.
Okay.
Versus, I feel like in LAN, we're gonna see a big gap between the bottom 25 and the rest of the 75, maybe even the bottom 50 and the top 50. As far as like general performance, I think that it's possible that like the top 25 might end up, performing fairly close to each other. But I think, especially once you get like even just 2 or 3 games, it's only 6 games, right? But even if you only get 2 or 3 games in, and you recognize that like the guys who rotate through here, they're not at that skill threshold, and they just start getting farmed by the players who are and are smart enough to recognize that in the middle of the series. I think that's going to create big disparities in the final scoring that we haven't seen in this format.
I've seen that every single LAN except for Issa Katowice, because I had a very consistent format. But
yeah,
I think we've seen that at every single LAN, a disparity between the people who make money and the people who don't make money.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the first time that we have a larger, at an epic event, a larger points like potential, right? There's way more points on the board now than ever, so that gap might be smaller or bigger. We don't know how it's going to play out yet, I think, for 6 games. But another thing I want to touch on in terms of nervousness and LAN experience is this is completely different than you brought up the peripherals and stuff like that, like being able to play on your own peripherals. Still, this is completely different than PAX West TwitchCon. for the sole reason that not only are the stakes higher, but there's been pressure leading up to this event like none other before. TwitchCon, sure, it was publicized, but it was like 3 weeks before. And
Yeah.
nobody really knew what the prize pool was. Nobody really cared. Like they were just there. Like it was just competitive Fortnite. Let's watch. Now people know the prize pool, $30 million. That is crazy. That is pressure on its own. But at the same
Bonkers.
time, too, this is the only epic event where there has been a crowd watching you play. You have to walk out in front of 17,000 people, hopefully, in that arena, and you have to walk out in front of them. They're going to be cheering for you or not cheering for you or whatever, and you are going to put your head down and freak out. You are going to freak out. There is no stopping that. You are.
There's no
going
two
to
ways
freak
about
out.
it. Yeah. And it's how you handle that freak out, right? Like
Except Bizzle, Tfue, those guys are not going to freak out because they've been here many, many times. So that is a huge advantage. Huge
experience is a
advantage.
lot. Yeah, totally. All right. Before we head off, Ballett, do you want to talk a bit about some of the? I kind of want to talk a little bit about these NA East trios. I got a list in front of me, sent to me on Twitter, and I kind of just want to go over them super quick. Right, some of the ones that stand out to me. Obviously, there's the Young Gods group of Dubs, Mega, and Clicks. You've got the Sentinels, the Sentinel Animals in Aspect Animal and Booga, and then another one that's all these are great, right? But another one that's really interesting to me is the Macwood, Calculator, and Zexro. So those three that I've highlighted out. What are your thoughts? How do you think Dubs, Mega, and Clicks are going to do as a team full of youngins with no one on the team with LAN experience? Are they going to be disadvantaged compared to these teams that have split it up a little better?
No, I think they actually have a really good chance at this format and this tournament, just because again it's all new and they have a play style. Literally every single one of them. This is what I was talking about in terms of Dubs and Mega not doing as well at World Cup. Is their style is very kill heavy, very very risky, and very very aggressive. No matter the wall taking or anything like that, they still have all that advantage of wall taking and confidence and being in an online tournament where they're going to be able to run into people who aren't as good. At LAN, it's going to be different. But so I think that team has an advantage, but I also think that a team like Saf, Zayt, Bizzle are going to figure things out fast.
Yeah.
Like really fast. They're Saf and Zayt are one of the most experimental pairs ever. Bizzle is just the most consistent at figuring things out, and he has these guys have probably the most squad experience of anybody there. Actually, I'm almost certain that they have the most squad experience out of anybody there, because they played. Not only did they play squads back in the day, they played the Microsoft tournament. They played all sorts of things. They're set. They're set.
What about Elevate and Cease? They have a decent chunk of experience in the same world.
Yeah, paired with Riversun though, who doesn't.
Yeah, that's the interesting point, right? And the other thing that I kind of want to point out that's interesting to me that you mentioned about Bizzle has always been very like ahead of the curve, right? It goes into a tournament and Bizzle's just doing things that people aren't and capitalizing on it, right? Especially in the early days.
I didn't say that. I don't think that's true.
You don't think so?
Nah. Bizzle's not technical. Bizzle is just very tactical. He's very tactical. He is not a technical player.
But you can still, I'm not talking like mechanically, but it just like decisions and deciding that this is the best way to play this situation. He's gotten to those points before other players, especially going into tournaments in the past. And what I'll say,
I also recall the TwitchCon thing where he was ramping with a single ramp with Gladiator play and just winning the game because nobody realized that he could just ramp.
Nobody quite got it. Yeah. Young Calculator I had a conversation with one day, a couple weeks back before we had him on the show. He was talking about one of his main focuses going into the World Cup is trying to figure out how he can be Bizzle, what he can figure out before everybody else. And he's very cognizant that is important and really important to explore and discover if you can find something like that, right? So I think it'll be interesting to see. I think it'll be very obvious, which players have really put that much forethought into their play going into not just trios, but also the World Cup and every event ever into the future. And that really excites me. That said, we are out of time. Bala, I had a phenomenal time with you today. It was great. I was a little worried just doing the two of us, but I had a blast.
No, it was fun, man. We get to a lot more questions than we normally do, and we got to just be us, and it was good. It was good. I appreciate everybody calling in. I loved some of the debates that we had about some things. It was awesome.
Yep, 100%, 100%. Bala, we didn't cover it in the beginning, but you want to talk a little bit about what you've been up to, what you're going to be up to, and where you're going to be up to it?
Yeah. I launched my 2 shows that I've been talking about for the past 3 weeks. Hey, Bala, I have a question, which is the Q&A thing. You can go watch the first episode on YouTube, and then
I'm on it.
Expanding your 1x1, which is just a viewer submission VOD review show, which went really well today, and I'll be uploading like the best of those VOD reviews to YouTube. Tomorrow I'm going to be casting the Bullet Drop Cup for EU starting at 12 Eastern on my channel with Shy Wager. It's going to be a blast. We did the Boom Cup last 2 weekends ago, and that was awesome. Yeah. So it's run by the same people. It's just a little bit different structured. There's heats leading up to it, but it's just the finals that we're casting. It's going to be dope. And besides that, I'm ramping up for World Cup, so I'm just going to work on my content. And then I'm practicing like every night casting to be where I need to be for World Cup.
Reading your books and accents.
Yeah, no, maybe a little bit.
Classic. All right, well, Bala, thanks so much for coming on and co-hosting again with me. And we'll catch you next week. Well, we'll catch you tomorrow for the Cup, but also next week. Peace out, brother.
Peace.
All right, guys, that's been Hotline FN episode 9. Really appreciative of everyone who's been around. Really appreciative of all the follows, of the subscriptions. Again, if you enjoy this content, the best thing you can do for me is to support it. There's so many ways you can support it for free. Subscribe and like on YouTube, follow on Twitch. And if you are interested in supporting it more, that next level, hit us up with that mad subscribe right here on Twitch, right? Retweet our stuff on Twitter. Help us grow so we can keep delivering great content to you with great guests and a great weekly show and podcast. Always hit us up here on Twitch, on Twitter, on YouTube with your suggestions for guests. Talk with us about topics before. So until next week for episode 10, I'll see you next time on Hotline FN.